Joining me now here on the Rich Eisen Show before his White Sox take on the Yankees tonight in the Bronx is Robin Ventura. How are you, Robin?
I am good. How you doing, Rich?
Yeah, that's a little stroll down memory lane for you right there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Do you remember what it sure looked like you were telling the guys, keep moving, I want to circle the bases?
I wouldn't have minded having a grand slam. I wouldn't mind having that at home plate. However, I think everybody else was tired and they had other plans.
Yeah, you had a plane flight to take too.
Exactly.
To go back to Atlanta. What was it like being a Met during that Subway Series year against the Yankees, as well as 9/11, being here in the city at that point in time?
Oh,
Robin.
I mean, I enjoyed all my time, here. But when you're at the Mets, and at that time, the team hadn't really been in the playoffs for a while. So to kind of be on that team that was, going to be back in the playoffs, it was very exciting. And 9/11, it was, as heartbreaking as it could be, but Shea Stadium was the place where they were taking all the supplies. And so, I mean, anytime we went in there to work out during the off time right after 9/11, you're just consumed by the hurt everybody was experiencing because, the firefighters were out there. So I thought, the organization as a whole did a great job of trying to help and do anything they could.
And then, for your experience in doing what you've done, that how many times fans expect something or hope something will happen, and then it does. And the moment in sports lives up, if not surpasses the moment. And Mike Piazza hitting that home run in the game coming back from 9/11 is something that I'll never forget. And I'm wondering what it was like from your position.
Well, I was on deck. And I think anytime Mike hit a home run, it was always big. But, the fact that Shea Stadium was on wheels and underneath the stadium, when people would start jumping in unison, you could really feel it on the field. And I think that's the one thing, just the noise, for everybody to just let it out at once was incredible. It still, brings chills to think about it, of just, that first game back and we were losing and he hits the home run and put us up. But you could always feel it through your feet at Shea Stadium when Mike hit a homer because everybody would start jumping around. And once they start jumping in Houston, it almost felt like you could feel it. It maybe not come off the rails, but pretty close.
Robin Ventura joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. Look, I know you got your own thing going on, but do you think about these things when you come back in this city? When you come back to New York?
Every time. I think, they're just good memories. I mean, anytime you're someplace and it was fun. It was an exciting time. I mean, for my family to play here and I was here for 5 years, but it just brings a smile to your face. All the people you played with, the people you came in contact with, whether it was teammates or people that worked at the stadium that you're going to see, and they're just friends.
So now tonight you have your team in New York in the new Yankee Stadium. Chris Sale, how good is he, Robin? Compare him to other lefties that you've either faced, you've seen, you've managed.
Ooh, he's so good. he's very good, and I think he's just continuing to get better. When I first got here, he was coming from the bullpen to be a starter. And he's improved every year. I think just as far as his confidence and who he is, and now I think it's just a better understanding. We have a better team that's playing better, so he doesn't feel like he has to do it all himself. And there's just a confidence in that he's a big piece of what we got, but he's also just another teammate. And I don't think everybody puts him out there that he has to win the game by himself. And I think that's just such a powerful thing for him to go out there with. If he can just do his thing, he has a chance to win the game. But, really the only one that I think Randy Johnson's probably the closest of just being able to have the velocity and the angles and the deception that he has.
And you got a local kid, man, in the hot corner here in Todd Frazier.
Yeah.
What has he added to your mix?
Well, he's a good player. I mean, that's the biggest thing is he can play, and he's very smart. I think just his instincts and, moving around and confident. But, he's also brought a personality that I think we've needed. But he's a very confident, loves to play every day, every inning. I mean, he's into every inning. And I think that's that's a trait not a lot of people have, that he just seems to bring something to the table that our whole team responds to.
Very rarely do I ask another man about how another man's face is, but I think that's applicable here. How is Todd's face, Robin?
He's doing fine. I was in contact with him yesterday. He put his tooth or his bottom teeth through his lip the other day. So at first I thought he might have ripped his nose open by just, he had covered it up, and you could tell he was in some pain and I think shock. But he's tough. He after about 30 seconds he goes, "Wait a minute, I might be able to stay in here." But at that time we needed to get some stitches and clean it out and do all that, knowing that he could probably play today.
Yeah, well, I know that he met Jeter when he was a young kid at shortstop. When he was part of the Little League World Series championship team. Does he need diving into the stands advice from Jeter? Because Jeter, still had that.
We can get that from Jeet. See if he's around. I don't know if Jeet's around right now, but we will definitely compare notes on how you're supposed to go in there.
Yeah, I mean, because Jeets came out with, as you call him, Jeets came out with $1 million face still. He just had a little bit of cut under the eye. That's it.
Well, I haven't walked down into Times Square, so I don't know if the Fraser billboard's up yet. But I don't think that's. I don't think there's any worry of that happening.
Robin Ventura joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. I mentioned it earlier in the show. The first time you and I met, you were my first Sunday conversation when I was a SportsCenter anchor. I flew down to Texas, where you were part of the Chicago White Sox at the time. And there was I forget what there was, but there's some sort of locker room controversy going down, which is why I flew down. I think you were making up T-shirts or something like that, or something was happening.
I think they traded everybody.
I think that's right. They
traded everybody. That was 97.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, you forget your first time, but I don't forget my first.
Well, you don't forget when
Sunday
people
night conversation.
Was it your first Sunday conversation?
That was my first. You're my first Sunday conversation.
And we were both. See, you don't forget it.
I don't forget. Apparently, you do.
No, well, I forgot the circumstances surrounding it.
Okay.
But I mean, I was thinking about that while you were going through the spring training saga that the White Sox were going through. Is that? Look, you've been through New York twice with two different teams. You were there in Chicago, and everyone was up in arms about all that. Did you lean on any of those experiences while you were going through or dealing with, for the lack of a better phrase, what was going on in your clubhouse at the time?
Well, I mean, you go through a lot of things in your career. I don't know if anything's necessarily equal to this, but I think if you play in New York for 5 years, you just see a lot of things, and there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of crazy things that happen. And I think that, for most of it, if you can deal with that, you can deal with this. And dealing with inside the clubhouse was the easier part. I think the perception of what was on the outside becomes a little more difficult to navigate. But, inside the clubhouse, it was, just dealing with the guys and talking to them. And they were past it pretty quick. It just became a bigger deal when you've experienced this, where you get news people that aren't necessarily sports news people. Mm. So we were getting a lot of people that didn't know about sports that came in and wanted to report on a story, and they might go in and ask a guy that can't even speak English to comment on something that, I think at that point it kind of became comical for guys, how big it had gotten.
Did it ever reach the point where the players didn't want to take the field, Robin? Did it reach that point?
No, I mean, there was, I think they were angry at first, but, in the end, we know we're going to have to play at some point. So, you can take a stance on certain things, but, our job is to go out and play, and they understood that. So what was the biggest misperception that might still be lingering about that LaRoche situation? I just think on the outside, the way it was reported that it was just we're in chaos, and these guys came in and they were doing their work and going about their work. I think baseball, you see guys come and go, you see different things happen. Or guys traded. They reacted at the moment, and then after that they got back to business. Have you spoken to Adam lately? I've texted him every once in a while. I get a text, and I know he's traveling right now, but I haven't actually talked to him. I've texted him. So now your team has performed so well in the early going of this season, and it is the ultimate marathon.
How do you keep this thing going, Robin? How do you keep the train moving down the tracks there in the South Side?
You don't really look too far ahead. You don't look back. You just keep playing, and I think we're in a good spot right now as far as energy. We have good pitching. I think hitting wise, we're starting to get a little bit better, where it's a little more consistent, and that's the biggest thing. We can pitch and catch. So again, you don't try to mess with it too much. There's great energy right now. I think guys are rolling with it. It's such a long season that you don't want to sit there and try and pick it apart. You ride it while you can.
And where does your contract stand?
I have this year on my contract. I don't worry about that too much. Again, I don't really want to get into that because I don't want to mess what's going on here. I think, for these guys, it's important to just focus on what we're doing. And, at the end of the season, we can talk about it. But I don't – it's going so well that I don't need any focus to be on anything else than playing that night and doing what we're doing.
Well, all you're doing right now, Robin, before I let you go, is you're reminding people there's another team in Chicago. Sometimes you forget that when you see the national news and media. It just seems that there's only one team in Chicago, and you're kind of reminding everybody on a daily basis. There's two of them, right, Robin? You doing that?
There is. We're a bit of an underdog, and I think it's always been that way with the White Sox. And for somebody like me that's played there, you embrace that. That's something that you should be able to play with a chip on your shoulder. And these guys are feeling that way too. And I think it's been fun. I think just the attitude and energy that these guys all bring together. We're fine. I mean, we don't have to play them, but I think 4 times during the year. So, hopefully it can be when it means something.
Robin, thanks for taking the time. I miss chatting with you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it. Anytime.
I appreciate that. That's Robin Ventura.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.